me get out of your way before you get wound up here, buddy.
All right.
I don't want to disturb you, and I'll sneak over in the corner.
No problem.
Take it away.
Hi guys, I'm Austin Lux, and I am 15, going on 16. I'm come here to speak to you guys today. So I have a question for you all. You guys know what's wrong with our federal government?
It's broken.
A lot of things, but one of the main problems, I think, is that no one in Washington has any balls. More specifically, I'm talking about golf balls. Please let me explain. For the past couple of years, I've been able to attend a program called the Patriot Academy in Austin. At the Patriot Academy, they not only teach you how to be better statesmen, but they also bring in fantastic speakers from all over the country, including our very own Governor Rick Perry and founder of Wall Builders David Barton, to teach you how to maintain your character. One of the first things they do at the Patriot Academy after you check in is hand you a golf ball. They tell you that this golf ball represents your character and never lose it. It's a brilliant exercise that reminds you in every situation to always have your character. You see, the Patriot Academy recognizes that many people, when they get to Washington or to Austin, a lot of our representatives forget to bring their character with them. They've lost their balls. Amen. Their golf balls. I am calling on all of us here today to always have our golf balls, to always fight for what is right, and to always be men and women of character. A great man of character, President Ronald Reagan, once said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We did not pass it on to our children through the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they, in their lifetimes, must do the same." And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free. We must fight for what is most precious to us. And that, my friends, is freedom. Freedom, as defined by the good old 1828 Webster's Dictionary, is a state of exemption from the power or control of another. Every generation has to fight for, protect, and defend the freedom we have been given. Speaking of fighting for our freedom, do we have any vets in the audience? Any vets? Please stand up. Let us recognize you. Thank you so much for your service. It is because of these warriors of freedom that we have the privilege and the duty to stand guard at the Watchtower of Liberty. As a nation, we have survived external attacks and internal attacks, but never before at the same time. However, right now, we are defending America from external enemies who are determined to destroy us and our way of life. And we are in a battle on our own home front. We need to fight for the hearts and minds of our own American citizens. But how do we do this? How do we know what's right? Is there a standard that we can use or that we can go by? You bet there is. Our very own U.S. Constitution is the greatest foundation of freedom and security written by man. The second greatest document, only after the Bible. You see, our founding fathers used their knowledge and understanding of the history of the governments before them to create the most powerful document of freedom and liberty this world has ever seen. The Constitution unlocked our spirit and our ingenuity. This allowed us freedom, the freedom to either prosper or to fail, depending on our own actions. The Constitution is the reason that mankind as a whole was able to accomplish more in the past 200 years than we had accomplished in the 5,000 years before that. It has even been said to have caused a 5,000-year leap. How else could we have gone from horse-drawn carriages to putting a man on the moon in less than 200 years, when mankind had never before made such dramatic advances? Think about that for a second. A man on the moon. Mind-boggling. This explanation lies in one word: freedom. I have another question for you guys. How many of you have a job that probably didn't exist 200 years ago? I see some people in the back, yeah? See quite a few people? Now, would that job be possible if freedom wasn't prevalent in America? Probably not. Probably not. You see, when men are free, we are free to imagine, invent, and create. In doing so, our founding fathers were willing to sacrifice their lives, fortunes, and sacred honors to defend our freedom. Our founding fathers created something extraordinary: a republic where the people have more power than their government. Let me say that again. Where the people have more power than their government. Even if today that is sometimes forgotten. For ours is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Our founding fathers were influenced by many writers, philosophers, and pastors. Cleon Skousen, founder of the National Center for Constitutional Studies, researched hundreds of the founders' writings, and then distilled these writings into several common themes, or principles of liberty as he called them, which he then published in his book called The 5,000-Year Leap. Principle number 2 states that a free people cannot survive under our Constitution unless they remain virtuous and morally strong. It was commonly known by our founding fathers that self-government cannot run under corrupt society. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Franklin wrote that only a virtuous people are capable of our freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. George Washington also said that we can only survive as long as there shall remain any virtue in the body of the people. The founding fathers understood that the more immoral man becomes, the more government is needed in society. The more government that is established, the less liberty we have. Once people realize they have less liberty, the more they realize they want less government. At the heart of this vicious cycle is immorality. If we can just keep our country's morals strong, there would be no need for more intrusive government. Unfortunately, we find ourselves today in a moral crisis. It all started back in 1962, when prayer was banned from our public schools. 1963, the Bible was removed from schools as well, which didn't make things any better. And finally, in 1980, the 10 Commandments were removed as well. It shouldn't surprise us that once we remove the moral foundation from our children's teaching, that teen pregnancies, school shootings, and bullying have all been on a rise since this time, just to name a few effects. What effect do we think the redefinition of marriage will have on our society? Hopefully, we will never find out. Remember, only virtuous people are capable of our freedom. When the morality of the people breaks down, society falls. So all you men and women of character, I need you to help me fight. We need to fight for our values and fight for our principles. Because the liberty we are losing today is not ours. It belongs to the future. It belongs to the millions yet unborn. Our founders over and over placed their lives fortunes and sacred honors to defend the liberty of those not yet born. But how are we treating those not yet born today? We don't even respect their most basic right. Their right to life. Alexis de Tocqueville said that America is great because she is good. If America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. We must defend the miracle that we were given. But what can we do? Remember, we have the best standard around. Not only do we have the Bible, but we also have our Constitution. Both can be applied to every situation, to any piece of legislation we should support or should not support. Take, for example, the Health and Human Services mandate of Obamacare, which threatens our religious liberties and goes against our Constitution. We must not suffer tamely another lawless attack upon our liberty. We need to make our voices heard to everyone who will listen. Our congressmen, our neighbors, our co-workers, anybody you come in contact with. I've got another question for you. How many of you believe that marriage is an institution between one man and one woman and nothing else? Wow, a lot more than I expected. Well, you can do things like sign the Manhattan Declaration, which affirms the sanctity of every human life, that marriage is an institution between one man and one woman, and the inherent right of religious freedom for all, at manhattandeclaration.org. Again, manhattandeclaration.org. We need to especially teach our children about the principles that have made America great. A couple more things. I think that we need to start getting out and voting. Did you know that in the last presidential election, only half of all Christians who were registered to vote voted? And of that half voted for the candidate with Christian principles. That's half of half. That is a quarter of registered Christians voting for the right candidate. We need to get out and vote in every election we can. And try to bring a friend or two to the polls with you. Not only do we need to start voting at the polls, but we also need to vote with our pocketbooks as well. We need to stop supporting companies that don't support our values and morals. For example, if you don't support if you don't support Planned Parenthood, then don't support Starbucks. Now I know, I love my good chocolate chip frappuccino every now and then, but unfortunately, we need to let these companies know why we can't patronize them any longer. If you don't support same-sex unions, which a majority of you don't, we need to stop supporting Home Depot and Target. These are very few examples. We need to let these companies know why we can't patronize them any longer. Sir Winston Churchill said, "If you will not fight for right, when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory is sure and not too costly, then you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you, and only a precarious chance of survival. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than to live as slaves." We were founded as one nation under God. It is because we are that one nation under God that we have liberty and justice for all. I need your help to make us that one nation under God again. Our founding fathers felt so strongly about the principle of freedom of religion that they inscribed it in the very first amendment to our Constitution. So, my fellow Americans, we need to pray. We need to pray for our nation and pray for each and every one of us to have the strength to stand up for it. We must stand up for those who can't defend themselves. We must stand up for good. We must stand up for all that is right and true. We must stand up for liberty. We must stand up for our red, white, and blue. We must stand up for our Constitution. And never forget that one man can change the world. That's all it takes. Sometimes that one man is someone like, say, Senator Ted Cruz, Congressman Louis Gohmert, just had a birthday recently. Happy birthday, Louis. Or Bob Hall. We need to be that one man or one woman. And we need to get some balls! I've had a ball. Speaking of balls, we brought a few golf balls here for you. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to come up here and pick up a golf ball. Feel free to write on it whatever character trait you want to emphasize in your own life. Just like a real golf ball, our character can sometimes have a tendency to go too far to the left, or maybe even end up in a sand trap. But let's make sure that our golf balls are in it for the straight shot. Thank you.
I told you you were going to enjoy it. And since